and let in. Oh, here we are. I can see you starting to appear. Welcome, Mary. Welcome, Cindy, and welcome, Anna Marie. And oh, we've got another person here. Oh, perfect. So it's a small group so far. We've got nearly 50 people signed up. So some people are running late, I'd say. Some people have decided that the sunshine is calling them on a lovely sunny evening. So well done them. So welcome. Oh, Cindy, you're outside. We can enjoy the sunshine vicariously through you. So welcome everybody to this month's book group. It is Wild and Wise by Amy Wilding. And really excited to have you here today, Amy. Would you mind giving us an intro to who you are and where you are right now?
Yes, I'd love to. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining. It's really nice to be here with you. So I'm Amy Wilding. I am a women's circle leader, a community creator. I'm also a menstrual health educator, and I gather women and girls into safe and sacred space to share our experiences and grow and heal together through the power of circle and story sharing. I am a queer woman. I'm married to my wife, whose name is also Amy. And together we are raising 4 young adults, some of whom are queer, some of whom aren't. So we're navigating this world. I'm navigating this world as an inclusive feminist and all that that entails, and as a queer feminist as well. So there's lots of overlap between multiple different worlds that my feet are in. But my primary passion, my soul work, is helping women to understand the role that patriarchy has in shaping us into who we are. And a lot of times that happens without our conscious knowledge. So what my hope is helping women understand their power and reclaiming their agency and sovereignty, and really unlearning all the ways that patriarchy oppresses us, whether we know about it or not.
Mm. Great introduction, thank you. And we're going to be diving into some of those themes for sure later. And do just tell them where in the world you are.
I'm in the Louisville, Kentucky area of the United States, so kind of in the middle.
Perfect. And we were just talking politics before we started, and the deep breath that is being held collectively and collectively around the world at the moment, watching and seeing what happens in the US over the next few months. So it's high stress times for everyone involved, I think.
Yeah, it's stress, and it's so many other things. It's trying to balance despair and hopefulness, and where do we go with each of those? It's very complicated.
And it really is like the death throes of the patriarchy, as my friend Tracy says, because we have 2 very elderly white men battling against each other for power. And it's like, did you not
is this all we've got? That's all we have to choose from? Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, anyway. I'm going to read a little bit from the introduction. I love bringing our authors' voices to life for them, and then they always read a part of it themselves later on, so you can hear Amy's voice with her own words. So here we go. Introduction. The book you are holding in your hands is not merely a collection of written words, but a powerful tool for personal and global transformation. The meditations within beckon you to explore the powerful realm of symbolism and archetypes, inviting you to access your wild and wise inner knowing, an aspect of your psyche that has likely been suppressed and invalidated throughout your life. Regardless of where on the planet you live, your experiences as a female in the 20th and 21st centuries have no doubt been shaped by the dominant cultural paradigm. patriarchy. Ubiquitous and toxic to all members of society, patriarchy is a belief system and social structure that perpetuates and rewards actions and attitudes in alignment with the hypermasculine values of domination, hierarchy, violence, power, and male authority. In contrast, the attributes commonly associated with the sacred feminine, wisdom, intuition, nurturing, collaboration, respect for life and creation, authenticity, equality, rhythmicity, empowered embodiment, and peace, are devalued and marginalized, leaving all members of our culture, female and male alike, disconnected from an essential aspect of our true nature and fundamentally incomplete.
That made me get a little emotional.
Yeah.
That's still so true, right? Yeah. How long ago did I write this? 8 years ago?
I feel like it came out 2016.
Yeah, that's right. And I was writing it before then. I had been putting the pieces of this together for 2 years probably before we compiled it all. And I feel that those words, I've expressed this to you, Lucy, that every meditation in the book I felt like came through me, not from me. And so when I hear, or even when I read my words, I'm like, God, that's so powerful. Wow, that's good writing right there. Because it really did feel like a process of channeling almost. So when I heard you reading it, I kind of got goosebumps on my arms. It still feels as pertinent as ever, as real as ever.
I totally agree. So let's go there. Let's go to what brought you to write it? Like what stage did you get to in yourself until you were like, I've got to put this into words. This has got to become a book. This chafing at the bit of patriarchy, I've had enough. I need to put something out to counteract that.
Well, actually, it was very unlike most book writing processes, I think. What the initial step in the creation of this was getting women together and talking about these things. And so even before I started Red Tent as a community offering, I met with my closest friends every new moon for many years. And it was kind of through the healing in that experience that I realized all women need to have access to this, not just us. When we got together, we would choose readings written by other women authors, and we would base our circles in large part on the shared reading of those whatever choices we had made. And so when I began to feel called to offer this largely in the community as a Red Tent, I had a really difficult time finding content that I wanted to share that really spoke to what I was experiencing and what I was feeling, and my own personal journey, my own evolution of reclaiming myself from patriarchy, which I think is, it's an ongoing process. So it wasn't, my intention never was to write a book. My intention was to create meditations for my Red Tent circle. And each meditation in the book was speaking to something that I needed to, that I learned and needed to guide others in learning. So this book is really such a reflection of me personally, of my journey. And the way that the meditations are laid out in the book do not correspond to the way that the chronology of how I wrote these meditations. We found categories and put them in to the categories, but The journey for me was writing a meditation every month for my Red Tent Circle. And what happened then was women would come and say, that meditation was so powerful. I really like to be able to continue to work with it. So can you share it with me somehow? So I would just email them, the document with the written words, and then they would continue to process it and work with it in their own way. And then my BFF, Malia Keaton Digby, published with you the Heroines Club. And that was really my introduction to you. And then from multiple different sources in my life, I kind of heard, you really need to put these together as a book. And I was really reluctant to do that initially because it felt like, oh, this is so personal. These are so intimate. This is for my community. And I don't know if I want to put that out in the world. It made me feel a little bit vulnerable to put my heart out into the world, my soul into the world, and not know who was going to touch that. So it was quite honestly months and months of people encouraging me, and then connecting with you on that idea. Really, we really struck the match and lit that fire, and then it just became so obvious that this is what was needed in the world, not only for what I envisioned, was that this would be a book for circle leaders to have as a resource, but then also realize this is something that every woman or person can use individually, which is then we came up with the plan to make the audio book. And that was really the reason why, was so much more for the individual to use it on her own or with small groups. But my goal was really never to write or publish a book. And now, once we decided to do that and made it happen, it felt like I was birthing some medicine into the world. And my really deepest prayer was, and still is to this day, that this book will find her way into the hands of the women who need it. And so it's really special to hear from women who have connected with me through my book all across the world, and to realize that I love how Jean Shinoda Bolen puts it, that, a lot of people say it's like throwing a rock into the pond and rippling, but I like that she uses the analogy of a dandelion puff. Like, I blow the dandelion puff and all my seeds float all around and I don't know where they go, but they implant somewhere, and then, it grows from there. And I really love that analogy, that visualization of my book, which comes truly from my own authentic spiritual journey as a woman, impacting other women's lives in a positive way. It's such a I'm so proud of that. It's one of the most important accomplishments in my life.
Hmm. And I mean, it really has spread so far, because whenever we publish a book, we never know how it's going to go. We always love the books that we publish. We fall in love with each one. It is a love story. But some that you expect to make it massive don't. And others that you're kind of like, well, how are we going to quite do this? And Wild and Wise was definitely one of them. It was kind of like, it was completely new for us. We'd never
Yeah,
done a book of meditations or anything. We
yeah,
didn't know how it was going to go. And it's been in our top 5 bestsellers most months since 2017.
it's
So I mean,
amazing.
we've heard from so many people that it's on their teaching curricula when they are training yoga teachers, women's circle
Wow.
facilitators, and it's required reading. Everybody is required to buy a copy. So that's how much people really have found its value and its benefit, which is just wonderful.
It is. It's really incredible. It's more than an answered prayer. It truly is medicine, and I feel really grateful and humbled that I got to be the vessel for that. It's really special.
Mm. Can we just take a moment to talk about the artwork? Because
Yes.
quite a different vision for this to Amy, and we were going towards kind of leaves and flowers and that sort of thing, and I was going for very kind of pale backgrounds with kind of a bright splash of color on, and Amy found this picture, and I'd had it on several of my Pinterest boards for a couple of years.
Which I didn't even know that. I didn't know that at the time. Yeah.
And Amy found it, and I was like, oh, I don't know, it might be a bit dark, but it really is one of my favorite book covers now.
I still love it so much. I can't even imagine my book with a different color, quite honestly.
And we experimented with having the subtitle going all the way around.
Oh yes, we did. That's right.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I just wanted to put the I can't remember her name. I think it's Susan.
It's probably in here, right?
Should
Is
be.
it?
But just, you know, it was for those of you who know my work, I love to create spirals out of leaves and natural materials. Sally J. Smith, and she's based
Yes.
in New York.
And she publishes calendars of her art. She does so many amazing things. She's like fairy houses and all kinds of magical creations.
Forgotten that. Yes.
Yeah.
But anyway, shout out to her, because we never really do actually concentrate on. I must note to self, always bring up covers with the authors, because it's
yes, because your books have the most amazing cover art always.
Thank
yeah.
you. But you know, like how much of a process it is kind of coming to the cover, and then also we're wanting to highlight women artists, so you know that then narrows it down slightly, if you know, so it's such a process finding the visual identity for a book.
It is. And for me, it was kind of like, it reminded me of the process of choosing my baby names for my kids, that like you can just be like, yeah, that's good, I like that, I like that, but when you find the one, you're like, that's it, that is it,
doesn't it?
and I just like, I couldn't have let that go.
Yeah, it is just a click, and it happens for the author and for us, and it's tricky because it's a three-way process, because my husband is the actual designer of the covers, and so there's three of us that have got to have the click, and
yeah.
we've all got
then,
quite different
and then
tastes.
the artist has to say yes too. We
That's
didn't
true.
know if she would say yes. Yeah.
So would you like to take this moment to read a little bit from it?
Yeah, this is a great time. I'm gonna grab a sip of water real quick.
I've got I always keep the covers that we don't use, and I'm always wanting to like share this was nearly the cover, you know, kind of so people can see what it nearly was. And then I think, but I might not be allowed to share all that art because we haven't paid anything for it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I ran across that in our Dropbox recently. I was like, oh, look at all these that we looked at and thought about. Yeah, which all would have been fine, but they wouldn't have been perfect. Okay, so I'll read a little bit of, I'll show you a little bit of background. I'm going to read page 11, Origins of the Sacred Feminine portion of the book. I still meet with women's circles regularly, and obviously over the last few months, it's been a little bit more important as to which meditations or readings I choose to share. And what I'm about to read to you, I then took a portion of this, along with a portion of an essay that I published that's not in this book, to read at a community gathering shortly after Trump was elected. So just to give you some time context to that, and then when we found out, so it was 2 circles ago, when we were finding out all about the Supreme Court and all of that, I read it again in circle because it felt so unfortunately timely. Like, why are we still talking about this? Why are we still reading this? Why is this still our reality? But I want to share this with you because if I can evoke a little bit of hope in myself and in you, it is something to hold on to. And I am, just as existentially overwhelmed as everybody else. So I go through my phases of rage. I go through my phases of despair. I go through my phases of resolve. But it is important to have something to hold on to. So this kind of feels like this for me. So this is page 11. This is Origins of the Sacred Feminine portion of this book. And keep in mind, this was written in 2016. Come on. These are unquestionably dark times in which we are living. The advances for women and the environment that were hard won over the last century have been seemingly erased with the pen stroke of the current dominant hypermasculine regime. Our world is out of balance, and this disharmony is echoed by the personal imbalance we all experience as members of a patriarchal society. The sacred feminine is needed in our world now more than ever, on a global level and on an individual level, to bring our planet and our psyches back into balance. The reawakening and reclaiming of the divine by women and for women began in the last century and is gaining momentum with each passing year. Women the world over, like individual drops in the ocean, are coalescing to form a great wave of change, and the tide is now turning away from the patriarchal rule this planet has known for thousands of years. As is the case with the majority of movements that pertain to women, this shift is coming not from the top down, but from the bottom up. Like seeds buried generations ago, we rise organically, sensing the time is now to see ourselves as the awesome force of nature we were born to be. The rebirth of the sacred feminine is, like most things symbolically female, circular, rejecting the current social values placed on hierarchy and linearity. Women have begun to reclaim the domain of sacred circling as our birthright, honoring our cyclical nature. Women's circles and mother daughter circles are perhaps the most powerful agents of change on the planet right now, with each woman contributing to the healing of our world as she herself experiences healing. The meditations in this section were written for my Red Tent Women's Circle as an invitation to awaken to the toxic reality of patriarchy and to reclaim our inherent sacredness. Each meditation addresses a specific way in which we women have been systematically disconnected from our wholeness and our holiness by the oppression and amputation of the sacred feminine. Individually, the meditations offer precise medicine for targeted healing. As a complete collection, they offer profound personal transformation. And transformation is on the horizon, to be sure. As each woman reclaims the power and wisdom of the sacred feminine on an individual level, she increases the vibration for all women on a planetary level. The birth of a new era is imminent, and we can have faith that the darkness we perceive in this current time is, in the words of Valerie Carr, not the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb.
Thank you. Really important words to remember right now. And what I love about your collection is that often meditations and healing work can be very love and light, very fluffy, very floating above, transcendent.
Good vibes only.
Yeah. Which has its place, but if we are constantly avoiding and ignoring what you name in this, the rage that we feel, the need to say no, then we can only heal so much, because that part of ourselves has been unseen, unhealed, untended to. And so what I love is that whilst meditation is a very passive, a very calming act in many ways, these are nothing, they're not passive and they're not calming in that sense. They are empowering. They are, you speak to all sides of us. You say all parts are needed here, all parts are seen here, all parts are healed and dealt with here. You don't need to cut off your daily self in order to be spiritual. You don't need to cut off your angry part in order to be able to show up here in this space.
Gosh, yes. Yes, thank you for saying that. It's interesting because I do not fit the mold of the typical, I don't know, I guess women's community person. I really am not a very love and light person at all. I kind of get into the grit and encourage women to tap into their wholeness, and for many women that includes tapping into righteous anger, and there's so much that we have to be righteously angered about. I do share my Sekhmet meditation on rage often, because what I want is to help women experience the opportunity to move out of despair into righteous action, which is outrage, right? Outrage is what compels us to move forward in action, to gather and to resist and to create. And those things are really important at this time. And I think having grown up in the generations that we grew up in, we were not equipped to do anything but feel sad or feel despair or feel hopeless.
Or
We did not
depressed.
have, or what?
Depressed.
Depressed.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
It's very
Uh,
common women's way of dealing with
oh,
anger. Yeah.
yes. So for me personally, using my literally ever burning rage inside of me.
You are officially hashtag burning woman.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, it's so funny that you say that. I was like going through my bookshelf the other day and I picked up Burning Woman and I was just flipping through it and like noticing what I underlined in it. I was like, yeah, we need to do another Burning Woman book club. But I digress. So yeah, I feel that my passion, my soul work is so tied to my outrage about what women and girls experience in this world. And, that's not to say that that's the only entry point into revolution or evolution or change. It's just mine personally. And it took a lot for me to, as a fresh baby circle leader, to recognize that I didn't have to try to be somebody else. I really I had something special and unique, and have something special and unique to share with my circle community that stems from my authentic place of wanting to change the world, because I don't like how it is for girls and women. I don't like how it is for boys and men either. And now, as a parent of a trans child, I don't like that either. So my approach is very in your face, and that is a true reflection of who I am in the world. As my wife and I are, doing things sometimes, and I get so aggravated. She says, "Don't start fights. Don't start fights." Gotta tone it down a little bit. So that's really me. And what I realized is, and there's like the full spectrum of meditative experiences in my book. But I had to be willing to bring my whole self to my circle and to this project, because it would not be authentic. It wouldn't be me if I kept that part of myself compartmentalized.
Mm. So this leads really nicely on to the next question that bubbled up for me, which is, when did this part of yourself ignite? When did you recognize what patriarchy was, that you were living in it and that this wasn't
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, that's a great question, because that really is the portal that transformed my life. And for me, it was being pregnant with my first child. I really had no idea, honestly, and no personal um, investment, I guess, in sexism or patriarchy. I probably didn't even hear that term until I was in my late 20s. But what it was for me was, well, I guess I'll even step back one step before I got pregnant. I had a miscarriage of my first pregnancy, and then had some fertility challenges following that, and I was trying to get pregnant. So I read Tony Wechsler's book, Taking Charge of Your Fertility, which was life changing for me, because it included so much information about my body, the body I inhabited, that I was then 30 years old and had no inkling of. I had no idea that this was that this amazing wisdom and like magic was happening in my body all the time. I didn't even know. And what really shifted or clicked in me was the understanding that this information has been held from us. We have been disconnected from this information intentionally. It wasn't just like, oh, it's an oversight. Sorry, we didn't tell you this. This is not included in our growing up experiences for a reason. And so that really opened up a new part of my awareness that I had had no idea of prior to this. And then, so as you can imagine, going into, I eventually did become pregnant, going through pregnancy, and having the experience of complete disempowerment by the medical system of something that was like, this is my body, like I should know, I do know what's happening. I should be empowered to make decisions and should be supported in making empowered decisions, but that wasn't the case at all. And then of course I became a very vocal advocate for breastfeeding. And again, that is something that is such a natural and empowering way to feed our children. And it truly is, it's the best thing that we can give them for so many reasons. So I became a peer breastfeeding counselor with the Leche League, and began to really, that I think that was when I really began the process of educating and empowering women and saying, in this situation, here's what you can do. In this situation, here's what you can say. You can reclaim your power in these ways. And I think for a lot of women, it shifts their mind, because we have been so indoctrinated to just follow along with the script that's handed to us. And it takes someone else showing you a new way in order to shift that. And so I became really passionate about educating and empowering women to inhabit their bodies and to not be pushed around by patriarchy. So it was around all of that: pregnancy, conception, fertility, childbirth, breastfeeding, um, that I really found what I'm here to do on this planet. And like I said, I was 30 years old, so I think it just took me entering this world and seeing myself in a way that I hadn't seen myself, and where I fit into patriarchy, for that connection, for that click to really happen.
Mm. And then the second part of that question is, how and when did you come to the sacred feminine? Was it part of the same thing? Like how, I guess, when and how did you come to it, and how do you conceive of the sacred feminine? Because there are several goddesses who that you have meditations for in it. Is goddess a large part of your life now, a small part? When did you come to it?
Well, I'll start with how it came into my life. Totally synchronicity. It wasn't something that I was seeking at all. Right after my first child was born, I lived in a beautiful small community. It was like 2,000 people. We all could walk to each other's houses, and it was just the most ideal place to enter motherhood. And one of my friends had this goddess oracle deck, and I was really fascinated with it. And um, so I used it, and then I bought my own, and I learned so much from just this oracle deck. I learned so much about myself. And what I came to realize was, what's missing in our lives in Western culture is any type of archetypal iconography, examples of sacred feminine, revered women that were not associated with the Catholic Church or not associated with Christianity. And it really made me aware that the archetypes that we as females have to choose from in Western culture are so limited, and they're so prescribed. And so it's like, you either have to fit into this one or this one. And what I realized for myself was, I was seeing myself in goddess archetypes in a really powerful way that allowed me to recognize the sacredness in females that has never been a part of our cultural repertoire, in the society where we live currently. And so I became really fascinated with learning about goddess spirituality and religions across the world that had been goddess focused. And and then I actually learned about how goddess religions or spirituality were usurped by patriarchal, single old man in the sky religion. And I, as you might have guessed, I got pretty mad about that. So
Me
So
too.
I'm pretty on brand with that most of the time. So I wanted to share. I felt like, oh my gosh, I've had this major discovery in my life that, and I didn't grow up religious in any kind of way. So it wasn't like I had to disconnect and then reconnect. It was just like I was finding something I had never had, which was a connection to spirituality. And so it became a very important part of my personal growth. And for me, particularly, the goddess Artemis kept coming up in my life over and over and over. And so she's the one that I most strongly began my personal identification with, and I still do to this day. And I think sometimes people confuse the sacred feminine idea of spiritual relevance with a religion. And I know that there are some people who do practice goddess-based, spirituality as a religion, but I don't. I really kind of follow more of an earth-based spirituality that isn't rooted in any organization or philosophy specifically. And that's kind of reflected in my book too. I really kind of follow the wheel of the year as my center, my source. And goddess archetypes illuminate for me the amazing potential of sacred feminine in women, everybody. So now it's just kind of running in the background all the time. It's just, it's the foundation of my belief in women and how magical and amazing women are. But I would not say that it is any type of like religious practice for me.
That chimes with where I'm at and what I do. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It's just there. It's there.
Yeah, but the discovery of it is so earth-shifting and momentous. It's such a big thing, and then it becomes background. But I also feel like, people often want to talk to me about my book Moontime and like how important it was for them, and it's like, yeah, cyclical living is the same for me. It just is background now. I don't have to think about it with kind of conscious mind most of the time.
Right.
I just know where in my cycle I am. I know what things I've got to be kind of aware of, and where the challenge is going to be and where the strengths are going to be. And it just is automatically interwoven.
Yes. Yeah, same. And the same with like the earth rhythms as well, and moon rhythms, it's all just a part of my internal working.
Yeah. Which is as it should be and as it always should have been. And we've just all been so disconnected that then it has to become a real kind of conscious thing and a big thing. But it just used to be how we were as humans, just natural, just normal.
Yes, but I think about that phrase, you have to see it to be it all the time. And that, it pertains to this, it pertains to, pregnancy and childbirth and breastfeeding. We are so socially disconnected and isolated. We don't live in community the way that we used to and the way that we are as humans designed to do. And so there's just so much that women of our culture don't know because they're not seeing it anywhere, and it's not being modeled for them anywhere. And that's part of the reason why I think circle is so important and so powerful is you get to see it in action, you get to see it modeled not only from whoever your circle leader might be, but from the other women in circle. And I have seen over and over and over how it changes lives so profoundly to have access to this information, this wisdom, this knowledge that I feel is our birthright.
I quite agree. So I want to invite questions at this point. Several people have just turned their cameras off, which might mean that they're not wanting to ask questions. But please do wave your hand and unmute yourself if you would like to ask a question. There's no pressure, but just if you're here with something burning that you'd like to ask. Yes, Mary.
So I can't find my copy of your book just now. I'm really sorry. I usually bring it along to wave at you. What I'm interested on from the things you've just been talking about with Lucy is what sort of response have you had to speaking out, and perhaps not quite starting fights, but almost raising discussions, shall we say?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, Mary. Here's something that I have learned in accepting the universe's assignment to be in a leadership position, is that I think that a lot of people respond positively to how outspoken, and I'm big mouth, really. I always have been, because I think either because of conditioning or just, you know, our personality, there aren't a lot of people who feel comfortable being that loud and visible. And so but I'm going to say this, I am not everyone's cup of tea. That's the truth. And it's also okay with me. And I had to really learn to get okay with that and to be precise in my language about who I am, because what I realized was I want people to be able to find me who want to find me. And I don't want to pretend to be something or someone else. And if some people are looking for somebody or something else, I want them to find those things. But for the people who need this medicine, I want them to be able to find me. And so I find that I'm in alignment with a lot of people, and I find that there are also people who are not in alignment with me. And you know, and I hear both sides, but it's really okay, because, you know, like Lucy said, and kind of what we were talking about earlier, is that it really takes a lot of different perspectives and different voices to create shifts. And so I don't necessarily think that my approach is like the right approach or the only approach, but I think it is mine. So the people that I have in community with me, I think I have a sense of respect for the way that I do approach issues and how I speak out, or the ways that I am visible on issues. I mean, for example, oh man, this is probably gonna go way deeper. I guess I'll keep it brief by saying, for example, I'm very clear in my social media that I am a gay woman, married, and I have a trans child. And it is very important to me that I use my visibility to shed light on the fact that, you know, our community is oppressed and even in danger. Whereas I think there are other people that may not utilize their visibility in ways that shed light on particular issues that are personal or important to them. So I want to reach my community as authentically as I can.
Fabulous, thank you. I was just looking for a quote. It's a Gabrielle Roth quote that I wanted to share just in response to what you said. There's a word she uses, and it's a word I've never seen anywhere else. But the point she's making is that we're taught to think one, feel one thing, think another, and say a third. In terms of how women are conditioned not to be themselves, not to trust themselves, not to be who they are, but instead to be pleasing, to not ruffle feathers, to not upset, to be what other people expect you to be. And what you said was just, you know, I am in recovery from being a good girl. I am a people pleaser through and through and through. And so for me, it's always, I don't want to upset people. I don't want to disappoint people. But what you said is so key, in that if you're not the right person for someone, you want them to find the right person for them. You don't have to turn yourself into it. You don't have to pretend to be it. You don't owe them that. What you owe them is, if you can point them in the direction of their person, then that's it. Yes. Whereas I think so many of us are conditioned to try to be all things to all people, not to upset anybody, and not to let our weirdness show, our spikiness show, our truth show, rather to please.
Yeah, you know, that actually, that brings up another thought that's really, really important in circle work right now that I have continued to increase visibility around, which is cultural appropriation. There is so much cultural appropriation, particularly in white women's spirituality. And I'm going to be honest and say I was very guilty of practicing some of those very egregious types of cultural appropriation, because it is what was taught to me in the tradition of women's circle leadership. And so for me, walking this path of authenticity and, you know, as you brought up, Mary, just kind of like not being the people pleaser role, I have had many conversations within my circle and outside of my circle with other women who are in leadership roles to say the way that we have been doing this is not okay. And I'm not going to be doing it this way anymore. And here's something I'd like you to consider. And having those one-on-one, in-depth, authentic, vulnerable conversations, it is hard. I'm not going to lie to you. It is, you know, I make myself very vulnerable in doing that, but it's important. It's crucial to be having these conversations and not be on the bandwagon and be the people pleaser and be everything to everybody. I just feel like it is so important that I am setting an example that I can be proud of. And that's part of it. You can only do that if you're being authentic and if you are open to feedback, open to criticism, and be willing to grow. So I think we're all recovering good girls you know, to some extent. And I was having this really deep conversation with my best friend who has an almost 13-year-old who wants to be wearing, you know, crop tops and that look like bras, look like sports bras. So we were kind of having this conversation about why my friend, the mom, is so resistant to this. And it is because what we came down to ultimately was that she was not prepared to be in the world and to be vulnerable to sexual objectification at 12 and 13, which she was. And so what we ended up talking about was equipping our daughters to not be good girls, to not be pleasers. And so I said, you know, we're doing so great as moms. We're giving our kids these tools in their toolbox that we didn't have. And she said, I didn't even have a toolbox. I had a little Sunday clutch purse. That's what I had, you know, and it was so powerful to realize that that's where so many of us came from. We didn't have a toolbox. And now here we are, you know, very robustly equipping the girls and other women in our communities to end this plague of good girlism and to change the story.
Thank you. That is just, yeah, so powerful. Anna Marie, yeah.
Hi, yes. I'm looking forward to buying your book here. I live in the outside of the Washington, D.C. area.
Oh,
and I've been in women's circles in person well before COVID, and I myself am a mother and grandmother. What I found is that there's always seems to be, at least in this area, a divide between the women who have had children and the women who have not. And I wonder, you kind of answered it already, but I wonder if you have any specific hints on how to keep the group from dividing into two, or, you know, losing half of the people. This is an area where it's not so much career versus non-career, because most of the women here have both, or whatever. But anyway, I wondered about that, and maybe
Oh
it's
yeah, thank
more,
you for that question,
yeah.
Anna Marie.
It's a great question,
well,
because we had that too with our women's group. You know, we're mainly mothers, and whenever we had a woman who wasn't a mother joining, they would leave quite soon, because the conversation often does come back down to the role of motherhood.
interesting. Yeah, so no, I have not had that problem. My circles are they are expansive in their age and life experience. I have young women who are in their mid-20s. I have women who are grandmothers coming regularly and sharing circle together. And it's interesting because there are always little branches of conversation in our circle that pertain to our mothering experiences. And so yes, the women who are not mothers are not jumping into those conversations, but we don't have a lot of side conversations in our circle. I'll share with you what our circle looks like every time. But what I find is that the meditations speak to women regardless of whether they are mothering or not. And so what we share in circle is our response to the meditation. And so sometimes that can evoke experiences pertaining to our motherhood. And for women who aren't mothers, you know, it's evoking something different in them. Something so beautiful has happened in this past year in a circle. I have a closed circle, so it's roughly the same women every single month. And this group has been together for a year and a half. So I have the oldest woman is a grandmother. She has adult children, and the one of the youngest is a 29-year-old mother of two. So they're both mothers, but you know, they're really in different places in their life. And what has been amazing that I didn't even see coming was the way that these two particularly are giving each other medicine based on their own life experiences. And it's magical when that can happen. And I also have a woman who is a regular who's been coming to circle with me for 10 years, who is not a mother. And yet she, you know, she feels as included and as important, and that her experiences and what she shares are just as relevant as the women who are mothering. So I have to say, I have not had this experience in any of the many different combinations of circles that I've had, but my circle structure is very contained. And it's the same every single circle, whether I'm working with women, whether I'm working with moms and daughters. And that is, we come together, we do a grounding meditation, we sing a song, we light our candles. I do a little bit of chat about what we're going to be talking about, or what's going on culturally or in my life that has inspired, this is the meditation we're going to do this month. And I read the meditation. We go directly into quiet journaling time after the meditation, usually for 10 or 15 minutes. We come back together in circle and we share talking circle, which does not include any crosstalk, dialogue, feedback, nothing. It is literally, I'm holding hold on, let me get her. We call her the mama. We pass the mama around. And everyone gets a turn to speak if they wish to. We go all the way around the circle, and then I close circle. So we sing a song, we say our affirmation, and then that's it, that's circle. So there is the only opportunity for real feedback, crosstalk, etc., is after the circle is closed. And so women can participate in that by staying while I'm like doing the cleaning up and whatnot. And some women have developed really close friendships outside of circles, so they see each other regularly. But it's so contained, and what we are talking about is so specific to the meditation that there doesn't end up being a divide in terms of like, oh, you're at this place in your life and we're in this place in our life, and all we have to talk about is like mothering our kids. So it just doesn't have that feel of a very strong or profound separation in experiences.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Just inviting, if Cindy or Bridget have a question, now is your opportunity, because we are coming up on time. We're just 5 minutes from finishing. Cindy's finger is reaching through the screen to us.
You're still muted, Cindy.
There we go. Well, I just find this conversation, well, first of all, thank you both. What a wonderful way every 2 months to take an hour and just relish in the yumminess of both Lucy as publisher and author, and then whichever author. Today, I have the book, and I actually, I should have gone. I have a spiral that looks just like this, that one of my Bone Diviner sisters just recently created, and it's in the same green color, and I
Oh, how
absolutely love it.
beautiful. Yeah.
I'll take a picture and post it as a comment when the video comes out. But the other part that sparked me was this conversation about mothers and not mothers. And I remember, so I came to my holy rage at a pretty young age, but I didn't have the spirituality side of it. I was my mission, my passion, my spirit soul map is embodied by the I am woman, hear me roar. And I served for 30 years as a women's rights activist, from my 20s till I was 50. And then finally, and in that context, I can remember very clearly one time being in a circle with Mexican immigrant women whom I worked with for 22 years, down on the El Paso Ciudad Juarez border. And they were having a discussion about what it means to be a woman. And I was the only Anglo in the circle. I'm also not a biological mother. And I, almost to a woman, the definition was to be a mother, was the definition of being a woman.
Yeah.
And I really struggled with that. I was in my 30s probably. And I have to say, Lucy, it wasn't your book that brought me to it, but it is this journey. The whole understanding of defining a woman as a creatrix by whatever creative vehicle she imbues, and it's definitely an embodied process. And the last 14 years since I retired as a on the frontline activist, one of the last 4 years, I've been here on this property, and this is called Raven's Roost, and you just see a little bit of the background behind me, but I have come to really understand how much creativity comes in so many forms. And for me, it is a co-creation with this land to bring forth the full spiritual, sacred, safe environment for all who come onto it. And I myself have been through a journey over the last year to uncover my own divination threads of ancestry through my lineage. That's principally a British Isle mutt, but with some German and some other things thrown in. And the training came through a woman named Rita Rackley, who's was trained by an elder from Africa, so in the Dagara tribe tradition of bone divining. And we've had that very conversation about, wait, how can we say we're bone diviners in an African tradition? Not a single one of us is biologically, except when you go all the way back to the most ancient ones. And we said, well, really what the journey had been with Rita was a coming to our own knowing, our ancestral wisdom that is embedded in every single one of us, and that in connecting to that through the journey of training, awakening the gifts that come through ancestry. And it's a real core piece for me that in working with the ancestral work and divination, it's talked about as a healing, but for me, it's a healing of trauma at the same time that you are offering gratitude for the gifts, because not a single one of us is walking this planet unless our ancestors figured out how to survive and endure despite all the oppression and the trauma. So it's not light or dark. It is just that reality. And so I love that you birthed this, and thank you. And thank you, Lucy. As always, this is actually my second anniversary, the 2-year anniversary, my very first book club, that led me to being able to meet Lucy in person, along with Gina Martin, because the book was Gina's first book, The Sisters of the Solstice Moon. And I ended up in Crete at a priestess convention because they
Wow.
mentioned it a few
Oh,
years
that's
ago.
amazing. Thank you for
So
sharing that, Cindy.
thank you. Thank you both. Thank you all. This is such a sacred and special space that I put on my calendar every 2 months.
Oh, thank you, Cindy, and thank you for all your support and all of you here. But Cindy and Mary especially are super fans. We have a
Yes.
specific term in
Yes.
Womancraft HQ for people who do literally purchase every single book that we publish, and that makes you a super fan. So we have several of you around the world, and it just means the absolute world. So Amy, thank you so much for your time here, and for all of you for being here, Bridget, Anna Marie, Mary, and Cindy. Just to kind of let you know what's happening at Womancraft at the moment, we've got Sarah Robinson's new book, The Witch in the Wild Wood, which is available to pre-order now. That will be out in mid-September. Then next week, we've got a new author, Dr. Vani Leilani, and her book, The Flesh and the Fruit, re-exploring the Eve myth, is coming out in October. We had to move it forward so that we weren't clashing with your election. And so that will
Oh, God. Yeah. You don't want to get lost in that.
No, we got a book lost in that in 2016 and it wasn't pretty.
Oh,
So yeah, so that will be coming out mid-October, sorry, and the pre-orders opening end of next week. And then very on topic for this, we have just been sending out all our yeses, nos, thank yous to the people who submitted to our Womancraft Compendium, which is our first anthology. And it is called Weaving Our Way Beyond Patriarchy. We had over 200 women sending in work for that. And so it's actually, we had so much work that was of such good quality. We've decided to do two, one this year, which is that, and one next year, which is going to be on women's circles and women's rituals. So Amy, I'm asking you to contribute something to that, please.
okay. Yes, I'm in.
And so that will be up for pre-order at the end of August, and it will be on sale from mid-November. So next book club is me.
Yay!
What seems to be the year of creative magic for me, with my podcast Creative Magic, with several new e-courses about creativity this year. It is Creatrix, She Who Makes. It was available on a special offer on Kindle last month, and so lots of new people will have their hands on that. So that is going to be September the 12th, which at 7 p.m. normal time, an hour, just me, and I reckon we might do a little creative something together for that. Amy, thank you all.
Thank you all. It's been a joy. I love talking about this stuff all the time. Thank you all for sharing this with me.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.